Hi, everyone. Welcome to the wellness webinar on resilience. Today, we have Brian Avila with us. He actually works in employee wellness at Stormont Vail, and I worked with him before. And prior to that, he did training in the U.S. Army on resilience. So welcome, Brian.
Thank you.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. It's Friday.
Yeah, it's not a bad day.
No, and someone has a birthday on Monday too.
Someone does. I think that particular individual quit having birthdays a couple years ago, but it's like an honorary thing at this point.
And now you just get more resilient every year.
Exactly. For those that don't know, it's my birthday on Monday. All right, well, we'll go ahead and start in with the questions. So just to give us a little overview, tell us your background with resilience training.
Well, my background with resilience training really started in undergrad. I was an athlete all my life, and I was taking a sports psychology class, and it wasn't really called resilience. It wasn't talked about as resilience, but a lot of the skills we talked about in the course were resilient skills. And in one of the readings that we had, it said that the ancient Olympians were said to stand naked before the gods when they competed. And that kind of really hit home with me, because those athletes are working and working and working to get out there and win. And when they're out there competing, any mistake that is made, the world is there to see it. And, if they lose, all that work that they had done prior to prepare and really to win, I think that can kind of cause some pain for some of those athletes. And so that was my introduction to resilience in undergrad. We also talked about how baseball is an absurd sport. For those who don't know, a 300 batting average is considered good in Major League Baseball. That means you're failing 7 out of 10 times. So you have to have a little bit of resilience in order to overcome those type of odds. Prior to working at Stormont, like Brent said, I worked with the U.S. Army. We did 2 different things in my position with the Army. We taught a performance course that was developed. The curriculum was developed out of West Point, their Center for Enhanced Performance, and then we taught a resilience course that was developed by Karen Reivich and her colleagues out of University of Pennsylvania.
All right, could you expand a little bit on the performance work that you did?
Yeah. So, like I said before, resilience and performance kind of go hand in hand. If something doesn't go the way you expected it to go, you have to get back to where you need to be when you need to be there when you're competing. So the performance work really dealt a lot with some mental skills, specifically imagery, energy management, confidence building, and skills like that. It was really about, performing optimally and doing that consistency, because you've ever heard of beginner's luck? Anyone can do well once, but can you do that day in and day out consistently,
Right.
and put in the work to do so?
Yeah. Now, resilience is a really popular kind of concept right now, but what separates resilience from stress management or just positive thinking?
I believe stress management is something that's done more in the moment. Now, there are stress management techniques that you can do, such as time management, that can help, that you're not necessarily doing in that moment. But I believe stress management is more something you do in the moment when you're feeling stressed out. Resilience is something that it's something that you can do and develop so that you're better equipped to manage your stress in the moment. It's a kind of a preventative approach. You work on these resilient skills so that when you are in a stressful situation, you have these skills to go to. And when an individual is in the midst of a difficult situation, they are better prepared to manage it in the moment, so they can effectively complete the task at hand and get back to where they need to be once the threat or that event has diminished. Positive thinking, I don't want to say against positive thinking, but I don't think positive thinking is what we need to focus on. I think it's effective thinking that we need to focus on. And positive thinking doesn't always equal effective thinking. Some examples: one, if you've ever seen the movie The Waterboy, Bobby Boucher is told to think about things that aren't necessarily positive, that can be seen as negative, but this helps him to complete the task at hand. Whatever his goal is, it's helping him to complete that task. So that is effective thinking. Could be looked at as negative thinking, but it is effective. Another example, this on the positive thinking, is Bill Buckner, who was a baseball player, first baseman for the Boston Red Sox. He was in the World Series. They were playing against the Mets, and before that, one of the games, Bill Buckner was doing an interview, and they asked him, what's the best thing that can happen? What's the worst thing that can happen? And, he said, the best thing that can happen, I get a ball hit to me, field it, tag first base, get the guy out, and we win the World Series. Worst thing that can happen is a ball's hit to me, and it goes between my legs, runner scores, and we lose the game. There's that situation where there's a runner in scoring position, a ball is hit to him, and it goes between his legs. Well, years later, they did an interview with him asking, what was going through your mind? Were you actually thinking about the interview where you talked about the ball going through your legs? And he said in his mind, he was already popping champagne bottles in the locker room for the win. That's a positive thought, but it's not necessarily effective. So what we need to focus on is there's our thinking, is the way we are thinking effective or ineffective? And I think the positive, negative, I don't think that's as important as effective or ineffective. And I'd really like to, instead of positive, I'd like to interject optimism as well. I think optimistic thinking is, and it's real world optimism. We're not talking about everything sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes you just have to have a good shitty day. Instead of you're having one of those days where you're at 60%, let's work on resilience, and at least stay at that 60%. Don't let ourselves get down to 40%. And maybe if we have the optimistic attitude, we can take that 60 to a 70 or 80 and make it a better day. I think so much. I'm going to speak to this in terms of athletic performance. So much is focused on being in the zone, and one of my professors in college talked about his initial work with athletes was all how to get them to be in the zone to perform at their best. His later work wasn't getting them to be in the zone. His later work was, hey, when things aren't going your way, what are you going to turn to? What skills are you going to use to be more consistent? So I think that's something that is big. It's not always going to be positive. Sometimes we just got to use these resilient skills and really work to just have do the best that we can in that moment.
Yeah, those are two important distinctions that you usually don't think about with resilience. One is, being positive isn't always realistic. And if you're not being realistic, you're probably not going to be effective. But then the other one that was kind of interesting was talking about all the preparation that goes into being resilient. Because you usually think about resilience as just something is like an after effect or the result. And that's where you start thinking about like some people just being naturally resilient. But what you're talking about is actual skills that people can use and improve their resilience.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think that people are born more resilient or are naturally more resilient. I think there's certain values and beliefs that are instilled at a young age that help to encourage resilience. These beliefs and values are not just to push through adversity and get over it. Resilience, like people, it's not perfect. I don't think the goal is to achieve resilience. You don't, after we got done with our resilience course, we get a certificate that said we're a resilience level 1 trainer. That's not what it's about. You're not getting a resilience certificate and say, okay, now you're resilient. It's about becoming more resilient every day. And one of the topics that we taught with the military was growth versus fixed mindset. Carol Dweck, who is an author of a book called Mindset, we really focused on that. And It's all about challenging yourself and accepting failure as feedback and not an end all be all. The perfect way to, I'll give a couple different examples. For any of you who knew that person in high school who everything they touched turned to gold, amazing athlete, amazing student, everything they did was great. And then they go on to the next level, and now they're surrounded by other people just like that, and they just kind of fizzle out. Whereas you have the individual who, worked really hard in high school. They were, slightly above average or maybe average at what they did, but they worked really hard and they valued, and they knew that through their work and through their most effective attitude that they could get better. And I think that the best example of that is Rudy, 5'0" nothing, 100 nothing. He worked, no one believed in him, including his family, but he believed in himself, and he worked and worked. And, he wasn't a starter or star on the team, but he got that 4-year education, and he did a lot of things that people didn't think he could do. And I think when we're talking about resilience, if we can put ourselves into those situations where we are challenged and get out of our comfort bubble, I think that's where resilience is built. Is really kind of putting yourself out there and, kind of pursuing your potential. And really, you're not always going to succeed, but you can learn from your failures. And next time you go into whatever it is that you failed at, you can do it with a little bit more knowledge and, achieve it the next time.
Right. And why do you think when some people do challenge themselves that some individuals have a little bit more difficulty being resilient when things don't go right?
I think that's back to those beliefs and values that are instilled. And I think sometimes people, if they are great in that bubble, they want to stay there.
Mm-hmm.
And so if people don't challenge themselves, I think it's difficult for them to become more resilient. I think sometimes people just, if I'm great here, I want to stay here because I can always be great here. If I need to step out of that bubble and try to be even better, I'm vulnerable there, and I don't want to be there because that's not comfortable. I want to be back where I'm comfortable.
Right. So what are some benefits to being more resilient?
I think we want to be more resilient so we can be more effective in difficult situations and recover more quickly as we transition out of these situations. Mm-hmm. Experiencing negative emotions or ineffective or being ineffective, it's natural. It's going to happen. But it's about experiencing them at the ideal intensity for the ideal duration. If we get into a situation that is stressful, do we really need to be at a level 10 for that? Is this an existential threat, or can we be at a level 7, level 6 for that specific event? And then once that is done, are we able to get back to our baseline? A lot of times we hold on to stress and we hold on to that event or those thoughts, and we continue to relive it throughout the day. And I hear this all the time with people say, when I lay my head down to go to bed, my thoughts start going. And, I think that's, we need to be able to get back to where we need to be when we need to be there. And when we're asleep or looking to go to sleep, we don't need to be at that level 8 stress. We need to get back to where we need to be. Right. It's all about balance, sticking as close to homeostasis as possible. Hard times will impact us, but we can choose how we react.
So it sounds like a lot of it is about learning to control your reactions and then managing your energy and resources to better address whatever the situation is.
That's nail on the head. It's all about how can I think most effectively to manage my emotions and my reactions, and then build that awareness there. I think that awareness, self-awareness, is really key. to resilience. What am I like when I'm most resilient? Journaling, Brent had mentioned before about discovering what made you resilient in that specific situation. So that really helps to build that self-awareness. And the best metaphor I can use for this is Hansel and Gretel's breadcrumb trail. With the journaling or kind of with some self-reflection, how can I leave those breadcrumbs there to get back to where I need to be when I need to be there, when I'm most resilient? I think a second technique to help be more resilient is self-regulation. I know where I am. I know where I need to be. How do I get to where I need to be when I need to be there? And the best method to getting where you need to be when you need to be there is to manage your thoughts. What do my thoughts need to be most effective or most resilient? Because it is our thoughts that drive our emotions and reactions. One skill for self-regulation is deliberate breathing or diaphragmatic rhythmic breathing and mindfulness meditation. This helps to really kind of provide us some clarity. I always think of the metaphor, you have a clear, placid lake and you can see straight down to the bottom. You drop a rock in that lake and you see the ripples, and then the dust kind of comes up, the dirt comes up from the bottom, and now it's not clear. So that diaphragmatic rhythmic breathing and that mindful meditation is what helps us to gain that clarity again much quicker. I always think of the issue with this is sometimes people think you can do this when you are stressed out, and that's how you help yourself to de-stress. A cousin of mine was talking about a story where he lived in San Diego and he lived in an apartment, and the people upstairs like to play loud music, and he was trying to study, and he said, I tried to meditate during that, I tried to calm myself down, it just didn't work. The key is you have to practice these things. These are skills that you have to practice. If you practice these skills and you get into a situation like my cousin, you can calm down much easier, or it doesn't affect you as much. I think that's the key, is you have to practice these things so that when you get into these situations, you're better equipped to use these skills. It's not about, hey, let me just wait till I get to this situation and then now let me practice these skills. Now, you have to, just like sports, you have to practice so that when you get in the game, you can perform at your best.
Right. It's like building a muscle. You can't just go lift a heavy weight. You have to progressively work up to it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it sounds like journaling and meditation and mindfulness are two really good techniques or exercises that you can do. Is there any other kind of recommendations you would have?
I really like the breathing because that's a tool that you can bring with you anywhere. And you don't have to sit there and do 5 minutes of diaphragmatic breathing. If you watch sports, right before a basketball player shoots a free throw, before a batter steps in the batter's box, we had a lot of the soldiers talk to us about, hey, I can't do diaphragmatic breathing and sit there and do 5 minutes of breathing when I'm kicking down doors, clearing houses. And so we would say, well, can you do one breath before you enter that door? And do you think that would help? And, we had a lot of good feedback on that. But some additional things that you can do, I think pursuing your potential, really trying to achieve greatness, I think that's going to help a lot, because if you're doing that, you're not always going to get the results that you want, but you can further yourself and you can develop yourself, and trying to achieve greatness is a great way to really practice resilience. Getting out of your comfort zone, just in general, whatever it is, that's going to help to build resilience. I'm sure Brent can speak to this, but proper diet and exercise can also build resilience. I like to reference Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you take care of these foundational things, which proper diet and exercise, health in general, a healthier person is a more resilient person. I also think working out, going to the gym, whatever it is, is a really good way to practice resilience. You know, I like to think about, for me, being on the treadmill, I have the goal of 45 minutes of running. I get to 15 minutes, I'm like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. But you keep going and you keep going, and once you get to that 45 minutes, you're like, wow, you can surprise yourself, and that builds resilience there as well. There are also a lot of books. Karen Reivich, who developed the resilience program that the Army purchased, she has a book called Resilience Factor. Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl is a good one. 10% Happier by Dan Harris, which is one of my favorite, because when you talk about resilience or mindfulness or some of this information, it seems a little lofty, floaty, kind of, you know, heads in the cloud. Dan Harris in 10% Happier, he was a cynic, and so he didn't believe in a lot of this, and he thought the same way. A lot of the soldiers, when they first heard of it, called it voodoo. But he was a cynic, and he came at it with that approach, and really he was kind of taken back when he got into it and started practicing some of these skills. So I really like that one. Grit by Angela Duckworth. Mindfulness for Beginners by John Kabat Zinn, and Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. I do not know how to pronounce that first name, but Shunyru Suzuki. That is also one of my favorites, because you know, we talk about stepping out of our comfort zone and constantly pursuing our potential. You know, if we keep that childlike, curious mind, I think we can be more resilient, because we're always going to be trying to get better and learn more. And I think that's really important.
So kind of as a concluding thought, it really seems like you're pointing to the idea of resilience as not being something that you achieve or even like a specific kind of activity that you're working on, but an orientation to how you're living your life.
Yes, absolutely.
And everything
I think,
you do can contribute to developing that capacity.
yes, and I do think there are specific resilient skills, but really the bottom line is, how can we choose to think differently in these situations so that we can be most effective? It all comes down to our thinking, because we have control of our thinking. We don't have control over external threats or things, you know, external events that happen to us, but we can control our thoughts, and through our thoughts, because our thoughts do drive emotions and reactions, we can control those emotions and reactions through controlling our thinking.
Yeah, great. All right, well, all the information that you presented on books and additional things that we can do, I'm going to put that in the comments section. So if anyone's interested in that, they can just look there. But otherwise, thank you, Brian, for taking your time today to come talk to us about resilience.
Thank you, and happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you. Same to you. Brian had a birthday just before me, so kind of both in the same month.
Yes,
all right.
Capricorns. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot. Have a good day.
You too.